fractures and severe neck trauma. Family members and ski patrol reached him within minutes and attempted resuscitation, but Michael Kennedy was pronounced dead that afternoon. News coverage dominated the media for days. Kennedy's funeral drew hundreds of mourners, and what had been planned as an elite New Year's getaway had transformed into a scene of national mourning. The Honolulu fireworks explosion. On December 31, 2024, a backyard New Year's Eve party in Honolulu's Aliamanu neighborhood was in full swing as families gathered to celebrate. Among the guests was 3-year-old Cassius Ramos Benigno, a cheerful preschooler who loved fireworks and big celebrations. He sat on his father's shoulders, waving excitedly as adults prepared an elaborate but extremely illegal fireworks display in the garage. The homeowner had purchased a massive fireworks cake, a professional-grade pyrotechnic device containing multiple aerial shells designed to launch in sequence. Around 9 p.m., as the party reached its peak, someone lit the fireworks cake. Within seconds, something went horribly wrong. The heavy device tipped over, redirecting its rockets horizontally instead of skyward. Flaming projectiles shot directly into boxes and crates filled with additional fireworks stored throughout the garage. The chain reaction was instantaneous. A massive explosion ripped through the garage, sending a shockwave across the property. The blast obliterated the garage structure, destroyed multiple vehicles, and sent debris flying hundreds of feet. Flames engulfed the area. Cassius died instantly from the blast. His grandmother, 61-year-old Carmelita Benigno, also died at the scene. 2 other women, 58-year-old Nellie Ibarra and 23-year-old Jennifer Van, died from their injuries shortly after. 20 other guests suffered serious burns and trauma. Nearly a month later, 29-year-old Kevin Ballesteros, who had been critically injured in the explosion, succumbed to his injuries, bringing the death toll to 5. The explosion made headlines worldwide. Hawaii authorities launched investigations into illegal fireworks trafficking, and the homeowner faced potential criminal charges. The plane fire. On December 31, 1985, 45-year-old Ricky Nelson was traveling from Guntersville, Alabama, to a New Year's Eve concert at the Coach House Concert Hall in San Diego, California. The rock and roll pioneer, who had starred in the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet as a child and became famous for hits like Hello, Mary Lou, was accompanied by his fiancée Helen Blair and his band members. They were flying in a chartered Douglas DC-3 aircraft with 2 pilots. The group was excited about performing on New Year's Eve. Around 5 p.m., as the DC-3 flew over northeast Texas near DeKalb, a fire broke out in the cabin. The exact ignition source was later determined to be a malfunctioning cabin heater. Flames and thick smoke rapidly filled the passenger compartment. Nelson and his band members attempted to help his fiancée and escape the smoke, but the fire spread too quickly. The pilots realized they had an emergency and attempted to make a crash landing in an open field. The DC-3 came down hard near DeKalb, Texas, breaking apart on impact. Both pilots survived the crash landing and escaped from the cockpit. However, the passenger cabin was engulfed in flames. Ricky Nelson, Helen Blair, and the 5 band members all died from smoke inhalation and burns. Only the 2 pilots in the separated cockpit survived. Autopsies later confirmed that no drugs were in Nelson's system, debunking early rumors about freebasing cocaine causing the fire. The official National Transportation Safety Board investigation determined the cabin heater malfunction caused the fatal fire. Ricky Nelson's death sent shockwaves through the music industry and among fans worldwide, and he was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987. The Backseat Incident. On New Year's Eve, 1952, 29-year-old Hank Williams was scheduled to perform 2 New Year's concerts, one in Charleston, West Virginia, and another in Canton, Ohio. The country music legend had been dealing with chronic back pain for years and regularly used alcohol and prescription medications. His New Year's Eve Charleston concert was canceled due to bad weather and icy roads. Williams decided to continue traveling overnight to make the Canton show on New Year's Day. A driver was hired to take Williams in his blue Cadillac convertible. Before departing, Williams visited a doctor in Knoxville, Tennessee, who administered injections of vitamin B12 and morphine for his pain. Williams also had chloral hydrate, a powerful sedative, and had been drinking. He climbed into the back seat of the Cadillac and lay down for the long drive north. As midnight passed and 1953 began, the driver continued through the winter night with Williams sleeping in the back. Hours passed. Sometime after midnight, the driver noticed Williams had become very still and wasn't responding. Around 7 a.m. on January 1st, the car stopped in Oak Hill, West Virginia for gas. The driver tried to wake Williams but got no response. He felt Williams' hand and realized it was cold. A doctor was summoned immediately. Hank Williams was pronounced dead in the back seat of his Cadillac. The official cause was listed as right ventricular heart failure. Medical experts later determined Williams had died from a lethal combination of alcohol, chloral hydrate, and morphine that caused his heart to stop. He was 29. His body was taken to an Oak Hill hospital, then transported back to Alabama. His death shocked the nation, and his Montgomery funeral drew over 20,000 mourners, cementing his status in history as a country music icon. The carbon monoxide cabin. On December 31st, 2020, 8 friends from the Tribestovo area of Bosnia and Herzegovina gathered at a remote mountain cabin to celebrate New Year's Eve together. The group consisted of high school and college students, all between 18 and 20 years old. As temperatures dropped that evening in the isolated mountain location, the group brought a gasoline-powered generator inside the cabin to provide heat and electricity. Due to its primitive design, the small structure had limited ventilation. As midnight approached and the new year began, the generator continued running inside the enclosed space. Carbon monoxide from the generator's exhaust began accumulating in the cabin. The colorless, odorless gas filled the room as the group celebrated, unaware of the danger that surrounded them. By the time symptoms became apparent, the gas had already reached lethal levels. One by one, all 8 friends were overcome by the toxic fumes. None were able to escape or call for help. When family members couldn't reach the group on New Year's Day and went to check on them, they found all 8 friends dead inside the cabin. Bosnian authorities confirmed that the generator's exhaust had created a deadly atmosphere inside the poorly ventilated structure. The symptoms had likely been so sudden and disorienting that none of the victims understood what was happening in time to save themselves or others. The story shocked Bosnia and Herzegovina and made international headlines. Officials used the incident to warn about the dangers of running generators or other combustion engines indoors, especially during cold weather celebrations when people might prioritize warmth over ventilation. The relief flight crash. On New Year's Eve, 1972, 38-year-old Roberto Clemente was at the San Juan Airport in Puerto Rico preparing to board a DC-7 cargo plane. The Pittsburgh Pirates baseball star and humanitarian had spent days organizing relief supplies for Nicaragua, where a massive earthquake had killed thousands and left survivors desperate for aid. Clemente had learned that previous shipments were being stolen by corrupt officials before reaching victims. He decided to accompany this flight personally to ensure the supplies reached those in need. The DC-7 aircraft was loaded with relief supplies including food, medicine, and clothing. The plane was overloaded beyond its safe weight capacity. Maintenance records later showed the aircraft had known mechanical problems, and the pilot had minimal experience with the DC-7. Around 9:22 p.m. on New Year's Eve, the heavily loaded plane began its takeoff roll from Isla Verde International Airport. The aircraft struggled to gain altitude after leaving the runway. Within seconds of takeoff, witnesses heard explosions and saw flames. One of the plane's engines had failed. The crippled DC-7 banked sharply and descended toward the Atlantic Ocean just offshore. The aircraft crashed into the water approximately 1 mile from the airport. All 5 people aboard, including Clemente, were killed on impact. Coast Guard vessels and rescue teams searched the crash site for days. They recovered the bodies of 4 crew members and debris from the plane, but Clemente's body was never found. His death on New Year's Eve while on a humanitarian mission stunned the sports world and Puerto Rico. Major League Baseball waived the standard waiting period and inducted Clemente into the Hall of Fame just months later. Nicaragua named stadiums and buildings after him. The tragedy remains one of the most famous New Year's Eve deaths in sports history. The roadside strike. On January 1, 2025, 52-year-old Jelson Kainu Leslie was celebrating New Year's in South Kona, Hawaii. Just 2 minutes after midnight, as 2025 began, Leslie was setting up a street-side fireworks display in Captain Cook, a small community on the Big Island. He was positioning pyrotechnics along the roadway to launch as part of the New Year's celebration. While Leslie worked on the roadside fireworks setup, a 2018 Honda Accord was driving through the area. The driver, later suspected of driving under the influence, was traveling at high speed through the residential neighborhood. Around 12:02 a.m., the Honda struck Leslie directly as he stood on the roadway arranging fireworks. The impact threw him violently. The car continued its trajectory and crashed into a parked truck nearby. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but Jelson Leslie died at the scene from massive trauma. Police arrested the driver on suspicion of DUI and vehicular manslaughter. Hawaii authorities used the case to emphasize both DUI enforcement and the risks of fireworks preparations near active roadways during New Year's festivities. The concert crash. On New Year's Day 2024, just after midnight, a large crowd was exiting a concert at Rochester's Kodak Center in New York. The New Year's celebration had drawn hundreds of people to the venue for a performance. Among the attendees were 28-year-old Justina Hughes and 29-year-old Joshua Orr, who had called a rideshare to take them home after the show. Around 12:50 a.m., as Hughes and Orr waited in their rideshare vehicle outside the venue near the dispersing crowd, a Ford Expedition came racing toward the area at high speed. The SUV was driven by 35-year-old Michael Avery, who had rented the vehicle. Inside the Expedition were multiple gasoline canisters. Surveillance footage and witness accounts showed Avery deliberately accelerating toward the pedestrian area and parked vehicles. The expedition struck the rideshare car containing Hughes and Orr with tremendous force. The impact combined with the gasoline canisters caused a massive explosion and fireball. The rideshare vehicle was engulfed in flames instantly. Justina Hughes and Joshua Orr died in the inferno, unable to escape the burning wreckage. Multiple pedestrians nearby suffered burns and injuries from the explosion. Michael Avery also died from his injuries. To shore. Despite frantic efforts to revive him, Steve Irwin was pronounced dead shortly after. The entire incident was captured on film, making it the only known fatal stingray attack ever recorded on video. However, the footage has never been publicly released and was destroyed at the request of Irwin's family. The shocking death made headlines worldwide. Millions of fans who had watched Irwin fearlessly handle deadly crocodiles and venomous snakes were stunned that he died from an animal considered relatively harmless. In the aftermath, Irwin's family continued his conservation work through the Australia Zoo and Wildlife Warriors organization. Bruce Lee. On July 20, 1973, 32-year-old Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong, working on his upcoming film Game of Death. The martial arts superstar and international icon appeared to be in perfect health and peak physical condition. That afternoon, Lee attended a meeting at the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei to discuss the film. Around 7 p.m., Lee complained of a headache. Ting Pei gave him a tablet of Equagesic, a prescription painkiller containing aspirin and a tranquilizer. Lee took the medication and lay down to rest in a bedroom. Hours passed. When others tried to wake Lee for a dinner meeting, he would not respond. Ting Pei and producer Raymond Chow attempted to rouse him without success. They called Lee's personal physician, who arrived and spent 10 minutes trying to revive him. An ambulance rushed Lee to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, but doctors were unable to revive him. Bruce Lee was pronounced dead at age 32. An autopsy revealed that Lee's brain had swollen significantly, weighing about 13% more than normal. The official cause of death was cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. Pathologists determined that Lee had suffered a severe allergic reaction to one of the components in the Equagesic painkiller. His brain's hypersensitive reaction caused fatal swelling. The coroner's verdict was death by misadventure, meaning accidental death. The shocking death of someone so young and fit sparked immediate conspiracy theories. Over decades, people have speculated about everything from assassination by organized crime to a family curse, especially after Lee's son Brandon also died young in a freak accident. Some theories suggested heat stroke or dehydration. In 2022, researchers even proposed that Lee might have died from hyponatremia, essentially drinking too much water, which can also cause brain swelling. However, the official medical conclusion remains that Bruce Lee died from an allergic reaction to medication. Lee's death remains one of the most discussed and analyzed celebrity deaths, a medical mystery that continues generating theories decades later. Isadora Duncan. On September 14, 1927, 50-year-old Isadora Duncan was riding in an open-air sports car through Nice, France. The American-born dancer had revolutionized modern dance and was known for her flowing, dramatic style both on stage and in daily life. Duncan was a passenger in an Amilcar automobile driven by a young French-Italian mechanic named Benoit Falchetto. She was wearing one of her signature accessories, an extremely long, hand-painted silk scarf that hung loosely around her neck and trailed down her back. As the car accelerated down the street around 9 p.m., Duncan's scarf began flowing in the wind. The long fabric caught in the car's open-spoke rear wheel and became entangled in the rear axle. The scarf wound tightly around the rotating axle in an instant. Because the scarf was wrapped around Duncan's neck, the sudden tension yanked her violently out of the moving vehicle. The force was tremendous. Duncan was pulled backward out of the car and onto the cobblestone street. The scarf tightened around her neck like a noose, strangling her. Her neck broke from the violent force, killing her almost instantly. She was dragged several feet along the street before the driver realized what had happened and stopped the car. Witnesses described the horrific scene of Duncan lying on the cobblestones, the scarf still wrapped tightly around her neck and tangled in the car's axle. She died before medical help could arrive. The bizarre accident shocked the world and became immediate international news. Writer Gertrude Stein remarked that affectations can be dangerous, referring to Duncan's habit of wearing such dramatic flowing scarves. The manner of death was so unusual that medical professionals later coined the term Isadora Duncan syndrome to describe accidental strangulation by clothing or accessories caught in machinery. Media coverage at the time described the death as an extraordinary manner for such a celebrated artist to die. Duncan's tragic end became one of history's most famous freak accidents, a cautionary tale about how fashion choices and moving machinery can combine with fatal results. Anton Yelchin. On June 19, 2016, 27-year-old Anton Yelchin returned to his Los Angeles home in the early morning hours after a rehearsal with friends. The rising star, known for playing Pavel Chekhov in the rebooted Star Trek films, lived in a house on a steep driveway in Studio City. Yelchin drove a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee, equipped with a controversial electronic gear shifter. Around 1:10 a.m., Yelchin parked his SUV on the sloped driveway and exited the vehicle. What he apparently didn't realize was that the gear shifter's confusing design had left the vehicle in neutral rather than park. The Jeep began rolling backward down the incline. Yelchin was positioned between his vehicle and a brick mailbox pillar with a security fence when the SUV started moving. The Jeep pinned him against the brick pillar and metal security gate. The crushing force trapped his body between the vehicle and the solid structure. He was unable to escape or call for help. Friends found him several hours later, still pinned between his Jeep and the gate. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but Anton Yelchin was pronounced dead at the scene from traumatic asphyxia caused by the crushing compression. He had likely lived for several minutes while trapped, unable to breathe properly due to the pressure on his chest. The tragedy became even more disturbing when investigators revealed that Yelchin's vehicle was part of a massive recall. Fiat Chrysler had recalled over 1 million vehicles, including his model, because the electronic gear shifter design confused drivers. The shifter's design made it difficult to determine what gear the vehicle was actually in, leading to numerous rollaway incidents. Yelchin had received recall notices but hadn't yet brought his vehicle in for the repair. His parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Fiat Chrysler, arguing that the defective design killed their son. In 2018, the family reached a confidential settlement with the automaker. Yelchin's shocking death robbed Hollywood of a promising talent and became a cautionary tale that prompted automotive companies to reconsider electronic shifter designs. David Carradine. On June 4, 2009, 72-year-old David Carradine was staying at the Swiss Hotel Nilert Park in Bangkok, Thailand, while filming a movie. The actor, famous for the 1970s television series Kung Fu and Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill films, had checked into the hotel alone. On the morning of June 4th, a hotel maid entered Carradine's room for housekeeping. She discovered his body in the closet. Carradine was found hanging with a rope around his neck and genitals. He was unclothed. Thai police were called immediately and began investigating. Initial reports suggested possible self-harm, but evidence quickly pointed toward a different conclusion. The scene indicated accidental death during a solitary intimate act gone wrong. Thai authorities determined that Carradine had died from asphyxiation, but not intentionally. A second autopsy conducted in the United States confirmed the findings: death by asphyxiation with no evidence of self-harm. The conclusion was that Carradine had accidentally strangled himself during a dangerous practice. The circumstances of Carradine's death ignited a massive media frenzy. Tabloid newspapers published graphic leaked photographs from the death scene, causing tremendous anguish to his family. Some family members initially refused to accept the findings and theorized about possible foul play, suggesting he might have been attacked. However, authorities in both Thailand and the United States consistently ruled the death accidental. Carradine's death certificate officially listed the cause as asphyxiation due to accident. The incident remains one of Hollywood's most startling celebrity deaths, demonstrating how a public figure's final moments can be shockingly at odds with their carefully cultivated image. Vic Morrow. On July 23, 1982, 53-year-old actor Vic Morrow was filming a night scene for Twilight Zone the movie at Indian Dunes in California. The scene depicted a Vietnam War scenario, with Morrow's character rescuing 2 children from a village under attack. The production had hired 2 child actors, 7-year-old Micah Ding Lei and 6-year-old Renee Shin-Yi Chen. The scene called for Morrow to carry the children through water while a helicopter hovered overhead and explosions detonated around them. Filming began around 2:20 a.m. The helicopter was flying at low altitude, only about 25 feet above the actors. Pyrotechnic charges were detonating to simulate artillery explosions. During one take, a series of explosions went off near the helicopter. The blast debris and shockwave caused the helicopter to lose control. The aircraft began spinning and descended rapidly. Within seconds, the helicopter crashed directly onto the 3 actors in the shallow water below. The main rotor blades were still spinning at full speed. Vic Morrow and one of the children were struck by the rotor blades and killed instantly. The other child was crushed beneath the helicopter. All 3 died at the scene. The horrifying accident was captured on multiple cameras. The footage showed the helicopter's catastrophic descent and the moment it struck the actors. Investigations revealed serious safety violations. The production had illegally hired the children to work at night, violated child labor laws, and ignored safety protocols regarding helicopter operations and pyrotechnics. Director John Landis and 4 crew members were charged with involuntary manslaughter, marking the first time a Hollywood director faced criminal trial for a film-related death. The trial lasted 10 months. In 1987, all defendants were acquitted of criminal charges, though the families of the victims reached civil settlements. The case fundamentally changed Hollywood's approach to on-set safety, leading to stricter regulations for stunts, pyrotechnics, and child actors. Owen Hart. On May 23, 1999, 34-year-old professional wrestler Owen Hart was performing at a World Wrestling Federation pay-per-view event called Over the Edge at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. Hart was scheduled to make a dramatic entrance as his character the Blue Blazer, descending from the arena's rafters on a cable and harness system. The stunt called for Hart to be lowered approximately 78 feet from the ceiling, down to the